What's up, guys? I'm James Baney, and you're watching the Clone Wars fan show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 7, Episode 8, Together Again. As per usual, we're going to start off by giving this episode a quick rating before, and review before we get into the actual, details and discussion on the episode. So, out of 10 clones, 10 clones. Let's give this one. Here's the thing. I think that we're kind of still moving towards something really cool, and I like that. And if you were to rate this episode out of the last few episodes that have to do with these particular characters, I think this one is probably the one that got me the most excited. So I am going to go back up to an 8 on this one. I think I don't know. There was some recent comments from Ashley Eckstein where she was talking about the filler episodes versus the payoff episodes. And the payoff episodes don't hit as hard if you don't have the setup. It's better to think of these episodes as setup rather than filler. Because it's not like they have, 3 good episodes in the season, then they're like, all right, fill in all the other ones with 7, or fill in the other 7 with filler episodes that don't matter, and just waste time. That's not the point. And I totally agree with those comments. I've always felt that way about just about anything Star Wars, even when it comes to a book. Is that necessary reading? Well, it's going to add to the bigger story. So yes, I'm kind of in that boat. But yeah, heading into this one though, I'm still kind of reluctant. I'm like, when is it going to start getting to a point where we're going to look back and remember those episodes? I want season 7 to be one where we go, oh, I'm so glad they did that. And right now, I think people are like, it was cool. That's the legacy it has right now, and I'm hoping that with the last few episodes, they bring in something that's going to be dude, you can't just watch those last 2 episodes. Watch the whole season. It's great. That is what a good few episodes can do. They can change the way you look at the whole series. If Clone Wars was only its setup episodes, the whole series, no one would like it. But it has its payoff episodes, which makes people go, yeah, Clone Wars is great. Watch the Clone Wars. It's worth it. It's worth your time for the setup and the payoff. Boom. Now, that being said, this episode starts right away with the same stupid thing that we're still doing. We're still stuck in the jail cell. And we're still arguing over whether or not we trust each other. That's very annoying. But while it's still the tone of the episode, I think we move away from that pretty quickly. So we have this conversation, and then she's like, look, here's the situation. I can get us out of it. You got to trust me. Boom. And we move right into the negotiations of the next scene. When we're doing this scene, I'm actually sitting here. I'll admit I kind of misunderstood what Ahsoka's agreement was. So I kind of spent the rest of the episode going, wait, what? Hold on. That none of this makes any sense. Went back and rewatched it. Okay, Ahsoka's thing makes sense, so that's on me. That was my confusion. I thought Ahsoka's agreement was she was going to say, lock these 2 up. I'll go get your spice. And it then... the hope or the trust was that you're going to have to trust me that I can get the spice in return and I'll come back. But it looked really bad because potentially Ahsoka could just go away, but at least you'd have these 2 people to, torture, kill, or whatever, put the blame on. But I was wrong about that. So obviously what it actually was she was saying, sacrifice herself, let these 2 go get it, and then she's like, I'll just sneak out on my own, that won't be any problem. So it actually did make more sense. But I'm saying when it goes on to the next scene, I actually wrote, now I'm confused. I didn't know why they were just letting them get on their ship and go away, and I was very confused. But don't worry about that. I actually think this whole negotiation thing did pretty well at playing into the 2 sides of who was actually in the know and who was playing the game. So I kind of felt like Ahsoka was saying, trust me, but they still didn't, and they were arguing. But I was like, but I don't know, maybe they're arguing because they actually still don't trust her, and they actually think she's a snake and all this other stuff. So I actually thought it played out pretty well, especially then later when we get to the other scene where she's like, yeah, she let us go. I thought that was pretty clear, and she said, trust me. And so kudos to them. I like that. The real cool part about this scene, though, is seeing the Pikes feel like they are at the disadvantage. Most of the time when we come into these scenarios, like you're bargaining with the Hutts or something like that, they don't walk out and the Hutts are like, oh my God, that was a stressful negotiation. Jeez, man, my life's on the line here. I got to make this thing work. Like usually the Hutts or whoever it is, the crime syndicate of any sort, usually has control of the situation. It's usually like your protagonist that's having the issue and feeling like that was stressful. I almost got killed, but I barely made it out. Even if it's like Lando or Han or something like that, you feel like the enemy is never really at the short end of the stick. This was a cool confrontation. I really like this because it is setting up your bigger enemy, but at the same time, like showing how devious the Pike Syndicate actually is. So it was really cool to see these characters, Maerk Krim, argue with Fife, I think his name is, about this. And I really like his mask and stuff. That very cool character, cool looking character. I think the Pikes generally look kind of silly. They look kind of like the Independence Day aliens or whatever, but whatever. I think his design's cool. But I like this conversation, and I like him being at the disadvantage. Very cool. Now we're back on Coruscant, and we're having a discussion about how they managed to get away. I don't know. We're talking Rafa and Trace here, and they both seem to be stupid in a lot of cases. They get themselves in a lot of trouble. And sometimes I think that they make them too stupid in the episodes. I just don't understand how all of a sudden now Rafa wants to save Ahsoka. It just, I don't know, it seems almost plot driven. It seems like, well, we want to end up here, so we're going to have him get away, but then we need a reason for her to come back. I feel like at any minute she should just, or in any time that we've ever known this character would have normally just been like, yeah, I get it. She helped us out. That's cool. But no way I'm sticking my neck out for her again. You're crazy. I almost feel like it should have been Trace's thing. Like, we have to go back and rescue her and maybe win over her sister. But instead, I don't know. They're stupid and they went back again and it caused more problems, and I don't know, whatever. For the sake of the story, she all of a sudden has been won over and has actual noble cause now. Let's go with it. I love it when animated Star Wars is able to pull off this feel that this is live action in a different medium. I love it when it's capable of reminding you that this event happened in live action. We're just showing it to you in animation. And I think Solo, the movie Solo, is a big help in this case, because how many times have we seen Darth Maul on a hologram before talking to people? Probably a good number of times. But when I'm watching this scene and Darth Maul's talking, I should just say Maul is just talking to the Pike Syndicate, and they're having this negotiation. All I can picture is the gangster Maul from Solo, and I'm like, okay, that's him. That's who they're talking to. That's who they're scared of. And I can almost, like, in my head turn this whole scene into live action, and it's so awesome. The cool thing is to feel so justified at the end of that when he's like, I might have to turn you over to Crimson Dawn. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, that's awesome. And I went and I looked, and surely enough, this is the first time Crimson Dawn was mentioned in Solo, in the Clone Wars. I was pretty certain of that, but I wanted to double check, which proves to me that this was something that they went back and added in. So I assumed then that the line was supposed to be something along the lines of, I would hate to have to turn you into the bigger Shadow Collective or the Hutts or something like that. But they switched it over to Crimson Dawn because now with the inclusion of Solo, we're all trying to make this canon. This is where he was at the time. And I was just, make Solo 2 happen. Hashtag make Solo 2 happen. Want to see it. It's going to be awesome. So down on the landing platform, we're doing this back and forth thing. And, at the end of the day, I feel like sometimes in real life, you're going to have these types of situations and they're going to work. It is kind of frustrating because when you're like watching it on the couch and you're in the comfort of your home, you're like, why doesn't that guy just push back on her and say, no, you're not on the report. Get out of here. Leave. I don't know who you are. I'm reporting you. I'm turning you in. But instead, it's working because this guy's just being pushed over, even though he works in some crazy spice market. I don't know. You'd think he'd be a little tougher than that. But anyway, whatever. For the sake of the show, he's getting pushed over. And they bring out the boss, which is this Trandoshan character. She's hitting him over the head with the pipe. The pipe's bending. That doesn't make any sense. She would have to be stronger than the steel. Maybe the pipe was really a cheap pipe, like a thick thing of solder or something. And you're like, oh, that looks like metal, and then you pick it up and it falls over and you're like, all right, well, maybe it's not, maybe it wasn't as hard as it thought, but I don't know, because she's kicking him later and he's actually getting hurt. So I don't know, it's weird situation. I'm not talking about that. The fight back and forth, it's very Star Warsy. It's fine. Add the Trandoshan. She gets on the lift, pulls him up. You know what? I gotta be honest with you. If that was Luke Skywalker, we all would have been like, yeah, all that makes sense. Because that's basically Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. As many times he's getting caught by the Rancor and he sticks the bone in the mouth and then he escapes by running through his legs. And then later, 5 minutes later, he's, jumping off the plank and bouncing and spinning and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, acrobatics, and saving the day and hanging on by the rope, just Rafa is here. So I don't know, whatever. It's very Star Warsy and it's good. Escaping the planet. This is not a huge thing, but it was, I don't know. I feel like the first time I've ever really noticed. I could be crazy. This could be littered all throughout the series, but they were flying away and there was a very specific musical cue. And I was like, wow, it feels weird to hear I don't want to say real Star Wars music because we've talked about that, how Kevin has probably done more Star Wars music than any other composer. But when you think of Star Wars music, you think of John Williams. You almost think of that as the real Star Wars music. So I don't know, there was movie music kind of in this episode, and I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. That it does have a very special technique at bringing you right back into. All of this is Star Wars. This is not some sci-fi show. This is Star Wars. And it's a quick way to get that out of you. And I just thought it was kind of cool. There also was a very interesting cameo, or not cameo, I'm sorry, Easter eggy reference. And again, I feel like this is one of those things where I'm like, seriously, how many people are going to notice that? And yet I feel like I see it everywhere after these episodes come out. But I'll make sure to mention it just because I noticed it. When they take off, they're headed back to Coruscant. They got away from the Pikes. Obviously, the Night Owls, the Mandalorian ship, is following them. And it didn't occur to me that was similar to Boba Fett until they show the interior of the ship and they show the other one moving and kind of flying. And you see, I don't know which one it was. I'm assuming it's Bo-Katan, but she's turned, looking at something, and then she turns back to the ship, or facing out the front. And I just immediately was like, that's like Boba Fett in Empire Strikes Back when they're escaping from the trash. Han takes off, and then Boba Fett follows him, and they cut to the inside of Slave One. Boba Fett's over looking like this. He's putting in some calculations or something, and then he turns to look out the front, and then there's a wipe. Same scenario. They're just saying this is how Mandalore do. I think it's really all that it is. Just a little nod to she's Mandalorian. They're Mandalorian. This is what Mandalorians do. So there you go. Last thing, wrapping it up. The finale of this episode. I'm not going to get too into specifics. I'm just going to say I liked it. I liked the way this wrapped up. She talks about how she was a Jedi. They kind of didn't trust her, but I don't know. It all made sense. You're acting the way that we think Jedi should act. And that is really cool because these are the episodes, these are those important times that shapes Ahsoka into the future Ahsoka. And again, like, we've been watching all of this happen, and there's been a lot of details that we've discussed, even in the Clone Wars fan show, that at the end of the day, we go, how important is that really? But I think, like, you pick out this, you pick out this, you pick out this, and then you look back at the events that we've had thus far in the Clone Wars fan shows, episode 1 through 8, at least as of now, and it really had, well, not 1, okay, sorry, like 5 through 8, or, you know, because the Bad Batch stuff didn't have Ahsoka, but yeah, this stuff that was, like, kind of a formative section of Ahsoka's life, and we'll be able to look back at it and be like, yeah, that was when she started this arc like this. She ended this arc knowing that she had to be more this type of a person, or at least this type of a Jedi, and not this type of a Jedi, kind of a thing. I know she doesn't take that name on still, the Jedi thing. I'm no Jedi, that's been proven. But Ahsoka obviously very much still reflects the Jedi culture in a strong way. In a lot of ways, she is a reflection of what the Jedi are supposed to be, or I think that's really the intent behind her. That's always subjective and arguable, but yeah, that's why I think, again, as this episode wraps up and they give her that sort of confirmation, is you are more like what we would hope that all the Jedi would be. That points to me that these episodes were not for a waste. So again, I go back to the very point. There is no such thing as filler. Enjoy the episodes for what they are. They're set up to your payoff, and hopefully now then the last couple episodes are I guess you could say payoff episodes. Let's see it all happen. Let's see some really cool stuff. Let's see some connections to Revenge of the Sith. That's my prediction for the next couple episodes. I think these are the ones that are going to be the ones well remembered. The reason we watched all these episodes lead up to this. So boom, that's it. That's it for. That's why I gave it an 8. You know. That's it for this episode of the Clone Wars Fan Show. Again, please, right now, before you do anything else, go subscribe. Give this a like. Please throw a comment in there. Let's have a talk about this episode. Let's if you're gonna give your rating, make sure to kind of give it a disclaimer of some sort. You know, hey, this is I'm giving it a 7, which is the highest I've rated of any of the other episodes. You know what I mean? Like, don't just throw a number out there. I'm like, I don't know if that's a good score or a bad score. Let me know where you've been falling, and yeah, let's start a discussion and talk with other people. I'm not the only one out there answering questions. Like, talk to the other people in the comment. I love discussion. Let's get talking. Let's make friends, and come and join us on the Resistance broadcast on a regular basis. Mondays, Thursdays, we're always doing these like hour-long episodes talking about what's going on in Star Wars, and we're having our own discussions about what's going on in Star Wars. So if you are a fan of Star Wars, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next week.